preparing the live stream, preparing to live stream, preparing. Sorry, it's my anxiety disorder is getting to me with this.
I definitely am like, I hope this works.
Preparing the live
Okay,
stream.
yeah, there we go. Talkback. What's up?
Yes.
Sorry,
Okay, and we're live.
Okay.
I
definitely am like, I hope this works. Okay, we're on. Oh, and there's a delay. I just heard what I said a second ago. That's fun. Hi. If you guys can unmute yourselves for a second, we'll just do a little round of applause, welcoming everybody and congratulating you on your reading. Yay!
Hey!
Oh, cool. So for those that are tuning in right now, my name is Carrie Lee Cartwright. I'll be moderating the Talkback tonight for the Vagrancy's reading, amazing reading of Mama, I Wish I Were Silver by Amanda L. Andre, and directed by Fran DeLeon and acted so beautifully by Ellen D. Williams and Isa Briones. So yes, welcome everybody. Yay, we're here.
We're here.
We're here. Oh my gosh, how was that for you? How was the reading for you guys? If anybody wants to chime in.
Kind of surreal, you know. We were just saying, you know, when you're, at least for me, like I'm directing it and I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, yes, we're getting it, but to actually be able to sit back as a viewer, I was going to say audience member, but I guess we're more viewers these days. You know, it's a completely different experience. And what was really satisfying to me was to be able to hear Amanda's beautiful words portrayed so authentically and truthfully and so full of soul by Ellen and Isa. I mean, they really are such magnificent actors, you know. So I was happy.
That's good that the director's happy.
Yeah, I don't know how Amanda feels. That might be a different story.
At all. I mean, yeah, it was, I mean, Zoom theater is so strange, right? So it was really fantastic to see it as one piece. And it was really interesting to see it with all the sound effects, with the video, you know, with the images. It really was a different piece and I'm happy. I mean, it was fun and really, really heartfelt. I mean, Ellen and Isa are just fantastic and Fran is such an amazing director. So yeah, it was a pleasure.
Oh, that's so great. Are you guys getting feedback or is that just me?
Yeah, I'm getting like animal noises.
Sounds like a monster.
It sounded like.
You guys are getting animal noises? It sounds more
I don't know.
like...
I think it sounded like a TV in the background or something.
Yeah. I don't have a TV on in here, so I don't know.
I believe that's those are the spirits.
It might be Amanda.
Is it Dia?
It's Dia. It's totally Dia coming in.
It's dead. So let's start with Amanda. Can you just tell us a little bit about sort of what inspired you to write this beautiful play and just start there.
Yeah, well, it started with, you know, the Vagrancy, their prompt, honestly, they put out a proposal about, you know, history repeating itself, but they also wanted to emphasize joy. And this was back in September, August, September. And I had, you know, obviously a lot of things were going on. We were several months into the pandemic, but I personally had also just moved from South Central LA to the Valley with my family. And in the process, I was unpacking a lot of my mom's old papers and shifting them around. And that June, I had just given birth. So this, you know, there was a lot on my mind, but there's also like a lot to be joyful about. So that's kind of what sparked all of it.
Okay. And may I ask, are you a Filipina?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought I'd ask. You never know. Wow, that's really cool. So you started writing this in September?
Yeah. Yes. Brand new. Yeah.
That's kind of insane. Like, it's so beautifully done and it doesn't feel too long. It's very meaty, but there's like some humor in there and it's very well layered. Like, congratulations. That's pretty great. And what was the, just out of curiosity, what was the workshopping process that you went through with the vagrancy? So they gave you a prompt, and then yeah.
Yeah, so, we then became a writers group. And so there were several of us obviously, because we'll see the rest of the plays in the festival. And so we would meet every other week with pages, talk about our thoughts and ideas. And we also had some mini workshops, and Issa and Ellen and Fran were there for all of that. And so they kind of helped shape the play as it was forming, which was just incredibly helpful to hear them, read it out loud, but also bring, their thoughts and experiences of being Pinay, being Filipina, being mixed Filipina, Filipino American to the table. It's, I couldn't do this without them.
I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, workshopping things, new works is so rewarding. Fran, how is that for you, in helping to shape what Amanda was bringing to the table and bringing your experience to the table? And yeah, how was that for you?
New Works is like my favorite place in the whole wide world to be workshopping it either as an actor or a director. And so it was such a treat to come on board with this. And I had actually done a reading of one of Amanda's plays several years back, but I don't think we had ever even met. But I was such a fan of her work because she does magic so beautifully in theater, in plays, and it's magic that is rooted in this reality, that you just kind of go with. So I've always appreciated that. So coming on board with this, and during this time, and when we first, talked before we even had Ellen and Issa with us, and hearing her experience of going through her mom's stuff and kind of revisiting that relationship and creating a new relationship as well, once people have passed. And I had just gone through that myself with researching a piece about my dad. So we had, in the discussions that we had there, really realizing that you can continue to build these familial relationships even when they have gone past the physical realm was quite, it was just so serendipitous, and we would like turn our cameras and show each other all the piles of boxes that we still had that we couldn't move away from our work spaces, even though we didn't actually need them at that moment, but we just couldn't let them go still, or just couldn't even move them away from us. And then once, Issa and Ellen came on board, and when we started to read some of the poetry, to actually go through it in a time when Asian hate was on the rise, and all of a sudden, be in a Zoom room with sisters to be able to talk about it. I don't think any of us realized how deeply pained we were. And it certainly started to come through once we were working together. And as painful as that was, it was also such a salve to, I know, for my soul, for sure. So it's been a beautifully profound, hilarious, ridiculous experience, and just very, very surreal. And I'm just really so grateful to be with these artists who are benign. I mean, it's been wonderful in that sense,
I love that. And it sounds like the timing was just right for you and Amanda, what you guys were going through. And then that, that's talked about in the play. That's one of the sort of like central themes, sort of about timing and, generations and things like that. And how the two sisters come together is really beautiful. Issa, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of how it was for you to find both of your characters and just sort of like, if it meant, if it like sparked you in a way that maybe doing a non, sort of native play would do for you, you know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah. This, again, I feel like for all of us, this came at it was like divine timing for like when this play came into our lives. And for me, when we first started just workshopping and working through it, I had like started to kind of go into a more like spiritual moment of my life, realizing like I wanted to reconnect with things relating to my Filipino ancestry and like, and also just spirituality in general. And so, and obviously that is so deeply ingrained in this play. And it was just like one of those moments where everything clicked and you're like, oh wow, I have this sisterhood around me. Exactly what Fran was saying, how this is one of the first things that I've done where I'm like, it's so unapologetically Filipino, you know, like I'm, and I think that's a thing for many Hapa actors and creatives. You're often not playing what you are, especially with Filipinos in general. I think that's changing, thankfully now. We're seeing more Filipino stories, thankfully to writers like Amanda, but definitely before, Filipinos were never playing themselves. They were always cast as a different Asian race because it was just like easier that way. And like there weren't as many stories for us. And so it's kind of cathartic to come to this and like be in a moment of my life. I'm in my early 20s when you're like searching for meaning and searching for meaning of like who you are and your identity. So it really helps to be surrounded by people who are so ingrained in their culture and want to share it and want to help you share it. And so I was just very thankful to be a part of this with these amazing Filipino women.
That is awesome. I love hearing you say that, you know, of course, again, the timing was so right for you. And I guess you know, when you were talking about how Filipino people are portrayed in media is not necessarily authentic. So it really is so amazing to have something like you said that's like unapologetic, you know what I mean? And just like so full bodied, that it's not like it's not like watered down, you know what I mean? And so I really felt like I learned so much. It was really cool. And so Ellen, I wondered, I'd love to hear about your experience coming to this, kind of where you were at, if you'd like to share. And then also, you know, did any of you learn anything from, you know what I mean? Because like anytime I've been in like a distinctly Asian American musical or play, I learned so much. And so it's just really interesting. So anyway, Ellen.
Yeah, I mean, I ditto a lot of what Issa said because like I've been on this, like, you know, I'm in my late 40s and so far away from my early 20s, and I'm still on, you know, but specifically have been on kind of this really interesting like ancestral journey, like spiritual ancestral journey for the past, like since the beginning of the new year, and really wanting to like tap into like, you know, who my ancestors are and were, and you know, and you know, I know I'm sounding very, you know, but like, you know, not of this realm, you know, and I feel like it's crazy because that's what this play is in a way, you know. um and it's interesting because through this pandemic I have found myself in two other readings where it's all been women and it's all been about sisters. It's been this really weird thing. And I'm an only child too. So I have like no siblings. And so it's been a fascinating like thing to be, you know, in the past year, like doing these readings where, um, uh, you know, I'm a sister, or I'm, you know, it's about sisters. And so I just, you know, it was the same for me, just coming into this like play of like going, I mean, you know, I adore Fran and I've known her for a really long time. And I, you know, she was like, look, there's this play. And I was like, yeah, yeah, always. Like I'll follow her to, you know, the end. So
I mean, Fran is pretty special. So,
yeah,
you know, you got to show up.
Like she's really special. So she's like one of my favorite people. So you know, she says, hey, will you do this? I'm like, yes, I will do it. And then when she says, yeah, it's a Peni playwright. Yeah, oh yeah, yes. And we're gonna ask Issa if she wants to be a part of it too. Oh, great. Like it was just like, okay, cool. And yeah, I mean, it just, this process is spanned over kind of like a 4 or 5 month process, really. And I feel like one of the first times or second times we met, it was just the four of us, and we were all done like rehearsing, and we just had like this crazy talk about like these really crazy synchronicities of like, what, you did that, I did that to this morning, like it was just, and then we just like, there was just something very like, I don't know, connected feeling, and there is something really special when it's something like a female, like Peni play, like it's so special. I'm Hapa half, mestiza, like Amanda and Issa also. And so also kind of like knowing fellow, like, mestizas is different because I don't know a lot of mestizas. And so that was, it was neat too, to kind of go through this whole process and knowing, Amanda's so connected to her, her Filipinaness, and I love that. So, it was great. It's been really great to just be with these awesome women.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. All of you guys are, it's just like so beautiful. You can feel like the energy even through Zoom, that it's like you guys are all like so connected, and it's really gorgeous. Did any Amanda, in researching any of this, or kind of, I assume you did a certain amount of research, even if you are very connected to your ancestry, or Fran or Issa, was there anything that you sort of like learned or you were surprised by? Because it does also deal with a lot of history, and it's really laced in there. So if any of you want to talk about that, and also if anybody has any questions, put them in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I did start doing some research, a little bit more research on martial law. I'm very interested in this period of time of the 1970s and how it impacted my parents' home countries. My mom is from the Philippines. My dad is from Romania, and my mom, she traveled during martial law, and she was in Romania. She was all throughout Eastern Europe, and so it's just, I think it's a story that you don't often hear in the Filipino diaspora. So I unearthed a lot, like a lot of my plays tend to kind of unearth that time period, because it was such a period of change for the whole world. And I would say that probably the thing that I learned about the most in doing this play is I actually started taking some Ilocano lessons. My mom she's Ilocano, but she grew up in Mindanao. So it's very different from Tagalog or from Filipino. And I found myself just being interested in the sounds of that language. And there was just something very different about learning another one of her languages, another one of my languages. I don't know, it's a little difficult to explain, but then also it was fantastic working with the folks at the University of Hawaii on the Ilocano translations, and working with Professor Pressy, who is the voice of the cassette. I have to shout out to her. She was so fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, she wanted us to call her Tita Pressy.
And we couldn't do it.
Is this Professor Priscilla Espiritu? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she, and she just shared so much of her knowledge also, because she was a little kid during World War II. So this play also feels just so multi-generational. And I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
That's so cool that you were really digging into the Ilocano sort of, that's so cool. And I love that it also brought about a different way to communicate with your family. I mean, that's kind of amazing, especially because like in family and like really layered family histories, like when you go home for the holidays and it's like your family, everybody fits in like a certain pocket. And so it's almost like when as you're aging and you're maturing and becoming who you are and you're unfolding, it's like you have to almost get your family to see you as who you are now instead of just putting you back in a box. So I think it's really interesting to then also speak like a native language or tongue as a means to sort of communicate in a different way. And it brings out something different in your family member too, probably, that isn't there maybe if you're just like speaking English or some other language, you know what I mean? So that's really cool. Fran, how about you with
Yeah.
researching this? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny because Ilocano is, I mean, totally a foreign language to me. I speak Tagalog, and as Amanda said, they are nothing alike at all. That I mean, there was. I would look at the words and think, okay, I could maybe try to piece things together. Not at all, not even in the slightest. And the words that I would recognize mean something completely different in Ilocano. So that would, you know, because you always think, okay, the Philippines, it's so small, right? I mean, yes, there's like, you know, 1,700 islands and there's 1,700 different languages, which have been upgraded to languages versus dialects, because that's what they used to be called. And it just, for me, really just shown this light on how diverse certain country, I mean, not certain, all countries are, even within their own identities, you know. And something certainly that we've been talking about in the Filipino community is how Filipinos kind of don't fit into the Asian and Asian American realm. You know, there are, because colonized by so many different countries, right? You have all these different influences. And there's a very heavy Spanish influence there. I think a lot of the times I'll speak for myself, a lot of the times I relate more to Latin cultures because of that influx of folks, and because Tagalog is very Spanish derived. Ilocano does not seem to be. Ilocano seems much more actually authentically Filipino. So that's that was an interesting thing for me to look at. And yeah, my parents went through martial law, and I actually lived in the Philippines from when I was 1 till I was 8. So it was all during martial law. It's all like a movie. I don't remember much of it, but like I remember more of the people power, you know, of that movement, and realizing, oh my God, how many times did the Philippines go through this? You know, how many times has there had to be this fight for independence and democracy, first from all of these different colonizers, and then to, you know, our own people who took power and decided to capitalize on the colonized mind that was born. So there, yeah, I mean, so much that this play gave me an opportunity to look at, and again, that intergenerational experience, which seems to be a recurring theme for me these days. And again, another one of those, you know, that universe and that serendipity, you open yourself up to it, and it's like, here. Let me give you something else to look at as an artist, with all these things that are brewing in your head. So this was another one of those. Yeah.
Wow. It's so interesting when you think about somebody who is maybe like 100 years old, and you're like, oh my gosh, the things that they have seen in their lifetime, just if you take technology, you know what I mean? Just even that part of it, but just sort of the things that are happening. And like you're saying, history is repeating itself. It's like, how many times do certain like cultures and places have to like still be working through this like BS, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
just like
yeah, exactly.
Just these
And you know,
harrowing experiences.
my mom is 93, so my mom is almost close to 100.
Wow.
And it's funny because you say technology, and I have a 93-year-old mother who always has the latest everything in the family. She just got what I don't even know what it's called. Is it the M1 chip, Mac? Is that what it's called? Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know, because I don't have one. She's got one of those. She has the iPhone 12 Pro. You know, because it takes better pictures, Fran. You have to get one. you know, and then she'll text me like, what do I do with my of course her texts have an accent when I tell them. And, you know, she's asking me all these questions like, should I get this word? I'm like, Mom, I don't have one. I don't even know how those things work. Like, you're way more technologically advanced than I am.
You're like, I'm still flying on an 8. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. I'm like, I have a rotary phone.
Oh man. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I love that. Did your mom tune in at all? Did she listen to the play?
She has not yet, because she usually likes to be able to talk while it's happening. So I figured, okay, well, we'll watch it together, you know, and go through it. But she'll be mad at me if she finds out like, oh, well, you did live talk, I wasn't there. So she'll probably
We'll text her
have
real
some words
quick
for
and
me.
have her
I
hop
know.
on. She's probably got some questions that even though she didn't listen to it or watch it.
Yeah, man, she's got stories and she sends them
Yeah.
all in texts, in really long texts.
Oh. Oh my
Which I love.
gosh.
I love. We got it. We have to do that. You know, we have to definitely get to our elders, whether they're, you know, our parents or our grandparents or aunts and uncles. I mean, we've got to, you know, get these stories out of them now while we can. You know, one of the things Amanda and I talked about was how many times in working in a piece about my dad that I thought I never talked to him about any of this, you know, and it was about World War II. He never talked about it. He just didn't. So I had to find it all in papers. So, you know, those of you out there who are listening, if you have your elders still here, talk to them, document, write their stories. We need them.
It really is interesting to think about like our elders and the stories that they are holding as you're talking about, and just how sort of painful that must be to hold all that and to not, you know, when they come back from the war, it's like it was at a time when people didn't talk about any of that stuff. You don't process it, but it like lives in your body. And even if you don't talk about it, it gets passed down to your kids and their kids, you know what I mean? It's just becomes this story, this sort of like almost like a plaque kind of like building up on a family, which I think
oh my God, that's a really great analogy there, that it is like a plaque that does build up. And to me the solution is really talking, you know, talk it out.
Yeah. Well, I love that your family wants to talk about it, because, you know, not all families do want to talk about it or don't have the tools to do it maybe. But luckily there are more and more available these days to help people through that. How about you, Ellen? Was there anything that, let me ask you this, what was your favorite part of the play? Like, was there a part that you're like, oh, this is just so meaty, that this part, I love it. I don't know. I want to say these words. They fit really well in my mouth. You know?
Carrie, I love how you say things. It's like so good, because I can be like, oh yeah, I get that. I mean, it's interesting because I think like as an actor, like the parts of me playing just Ariel was interesting for me because of trying to like grasp who she is. Like when I've played Filipinas, they've been either like American born, or I played one where she was Filipina born, but was trying to be American. Like she wanted to be American. So this one was interesting because, you know, and we talked about it a lot while we were workshopping it. Just like, because there is like, there's so many different types of, you know, Filipinas who have like been born in the Philippines and then are now live here, and how long have they lived here, and like are they around other Filipinas? I mean, there's just so many different influences on how you can be, you know, and how does she speak, and I'm why am I saying this? What did you ask me? I totally just lost my train of thought.
Oh, well, I was putting you on the spot to ask if there were
yeah,
any
like meeting it. Okay,
yeah.
So that to me was great because I think like as we went more into the rehearsals, I was like, okay, like trying to grasp who she is, like this identity of her. So that was interesting for me as an actor. and also, I mean, I loved playing the parts where, I mean, watching it now, like, it's so hard when you're doing this on Zoom because as an actor, you're seeing yourself, right? Whereas like if we're shooting it, I don't see myself acting, right? And I'm also looking at the lines and you know, while we're doing it and you know, but I know what's happening in the scene. And I think that so I wasn't sure how like the parts where I'm playing older Dia would turn out just because I've never had to keep an accent that long. And I think I do well with with the accent, but I didn't know in this sense how well it would sustain itself. So watching it, I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's all good.
You're like,
I believe
"Phew, oh
myself. I
my
believe myself.
gosh."
I believe myself. And so I loved playing those parts because I watching it. I mean, because I think originally we started off not doing them with accents. And then as soon as we kick those accents in, it's like, to me, like I'm seeing my own mom. Like I'm like, oh, that's my mom. Like that's how my mom would say it. She'd be like, excuse me? Like, you know, no, like, you know, whereas if you're doing it just with an American accent, it doesn't translate. It translates totally different.
Was that really clear to you, Fran, when you guys first went through it, or Amanda, you know, like you went through it without an accent and then like, you're like, it needs like, you know, it needs that flavor. It needs the, you know, the reality of the situation, you know?
Yeah, you know, I like to always hear in the actors' natural voices first, to see, because I think they're freer that way before I say, great, now let's put this on it. So we kind of kept workshopping it without the accents, as Ellen said, and then there was one night where I said, can we just hear this scene with it there? And all of a sudden it was like, and there it is. You know, like everything made sense. And that is a real tribute to Amanda's writing there, because it was there. And she was so good at like just letting the process happen. There was never a time when she said, you know, can we just do this? Can we just like cut to the chase, Fran? Because of course I'm like, well, let's try this. Let's see this works. But yeah, once those accents came in, I think we all sat back and went, there's the scene. There it is. There are those characters. Yeah. I mean, Issa is nodding because I think definitely you felt it as well that night.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because sometimes when you add in an accent, there's a risk that it takes away from it, that like, especially as an actor, it'll take you out of it because you're just so worried about the accent and you're like, God, now I'm forgetting about the acting because I'm just like worried about forming the words. But there was something about, I don't know if it's because I am Filipino, like at the core, but there was something about it that just felt like it kind of like unlocked things. And of course I was nervous because like, I've never actually like seriously done an accent. I like do it as a joke, like with my dad. And like, and that's the other thing that felt so powerful too, is that I was talking to my dad about this recently, where I feel like we only ever hear a Filipino accent in the media as a joke, or like in a comedic way, in a more comedic way, here in America at least. And so I think that's why it was like so powerful to hear it in a more just like real way, where it was like, these are real people going through some real crap right now, and to hear it and have it feel so inherently Filipino. And again, the way that Amanda wrote it felt so inherently Filipino that it just like all made sense and made me feel, again, I'm going to say like the divine timing of this, it all just felt very healing. All of the whole process, again, because as Fran was talking about how it came at a very specific time in Asian American hate crimes, and like I think one of like the most like workshops we did was literally the day after the Atlanta attack, and it was like, and we had many days that we could have chosen, and we were like, actually this day works the best. And it was just like, wow, this was the best day to do this, because like we just got together, and before we even read anything, we just like cried together for like 30 minutes. And it was just one of those things where I was like, man, who knew that something like this would come into your life and like do a lot of healing that you didn't even realize a play could do for you, you know, let alone a Zoom play and something where in a time where it feels like, oh, creation is like this kind of creation is not around as much because of the pandemic. So we can't have that kind of healing process, but like, no, you still can, which is amazing. So I think that was like something so amazing about doing this like very Filipino play and like bringing in the accent and like feeling like, oh, that was my ancestor that just came through. Like, oh, Lola?
You're like, oh, hello.
I'm like
Yeah.
screaming.
It sounds like it really, by using the accent, layering that on it, it definitely brought it to the next level while also dropping you guys in, you know, which is really like so key, you know. Sorry, Ellen, I had kind of interrupted, but were you saying that by playing older Dia, that was maybe like some of your favorite stuff, even though you were kind of nervous about that?
I mean, it's all, yeah. I mean, I liked all of it. So, I mean, I mean, just like different elements of things, you know. So
you're like on page 78, I said the word.
Yeah, like there was this one time.
It meant a lot.
Well, how about the time when I was supposed to scare you and you were never scared?
There was a lot of time in between rehearsals. So like sometimes we would come up on something and I would be like, oh, that was like, that's not, I was supposed to be scared, and I would have like a delayed reaction. And I was like, can we please go back? Because every time we get to this part, I'm always like,
oh, you scared me.
you scared me. And it's like, you stupid idiot. Like, and then I would have to like on my like PDF have to like, you're about to get scared.
Yeah, you're like, be scared, and you're like, what does this say?
There's a couple
what is
moments in the show. There's one actually that still, it was in this performance, and I was like, oh, I was like, no one will know, but I was like,
that's the Easter egg. That's the Easter egg.
That's
for
the
people
Easter
to
egg.
find.
Yeah.
I love that.
But speaking to Issa's, you know, your fear of using that Filipino voice, man, you did it so flawlessly, though. You know, it was not in, and I think we're all guilty of this, where we, you know, are comedic ourselves with the Filipino accents. That's how we bond. We have a very sick sense of humor, Filipinos. And but Issa, I think, I mean, you did it so beautifully and so seamlessly. And that thing that you're talking about, Carrie Lee, of like, you know, then dropping in, where I just saw Issa drop into this different character altogether. And I said, I'm like, you gotta hold on to that. You gotta hold on to her, because that's a character that you wanna use that, because I thought she was great. I thought your Dia was just very different. So yeah. Congrats.
Bro, you're a pro.
She's pro. She's so
pro.
Good. Ano, naku naman. Ang
MVP.
galing.
MVP.
Ellen, yours was beautiful too. I really loved the overlapping scenes where you both had the accent. It was really just like, and I loved the sort of production value over Zoom, you know what I mean, with sort of like that different layering of almost like a wash on it that, you know, took us back in time, which was really, really smart and really cool. Something I wanted to say, well, first of all, actually, it's funny that I kind of joked about page 78 and saying that there was like a word "the," because I actually wrote myself a note that there was this sentence that just was like, oh, damn. It was time and fate would move in the way they were meant to. And it just is kind of a lot about like what you guys are talking about, just sort of like the fate of what's going on in the world and how you guys came together and how you're able to lean on each other and also build something new from it. So that's really beautiful. Let's see if there are any questions in the chat here, unless anybody has anything else that popped up for them that you were wanting to talk about. I was going to hit on to Fran, when you were saying that, you know, how Asians and Asian Americans are portrayed and how we joke about it. You know, we joke about it interracially, and we joke about it like just, you know, and it's just so interesting how we've all had to normalize these things that are funny about ourselves, because life is funny. It's both tragic and funny, right? But like we've had to normalize it for ourselves so that we just don't like die under its weight, because we're always the butt of the joke. And it's just like, you know, and it's like, in some ways it's sort of like, no, I'm going to say it first and I'm going to say it funnier than you. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're going to take that power back
Mhm.
by doing it first, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There was a question in here. Oh, somebody did
Ooh, we
say
got
yes, the
one. We
joke
got
of
a question.
well, I will say too, Artists at Play did say yes. The joke of tacking on an accent lends to the hesitation sometimes trigger for actors of color when asked to try it in an accent. That's totally true. Let me see. Oh, there was a question in here that was Catherine Vondi asked, since this is a Zoom reading and there are obviously limitations to the medium, I'm wondering what other layers we would see and what you would focus on highlighting in a full production. And I actually had that same question because a lot of what people didn't see in the reading, it was a lot of the preparation of food, which is such a huge part of your, you know what I mean? It's such a huge part. We talk about food all the time, you know what I mean? And it's so cultural, and it really, you know, it bonds you. And the two sisters playing together, it's like you don't really know each other and you're very different, but you have this food. And that's sort of, because we're on Zoom, had to be sort of like skipped over a little bit, because there were these beautiful descriptions of what was being chopped and how it was being boiled, like cooked. And it was definitely like John Lawrence Rivera, like Flip Kitchen, like like up in there.
Exactly. Yes,
You
John will
know,
be in the final production. He'll just be
he'll just be cooking
doing,
in the back.
yes, absolutely. With that,
Yeah,
with a bunch of
yeah.
like to-go containers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that was a hard decision for me to make, to say we kind of just need to not have that be a part of this incarnation of it, because it would have just been, you know, a lot of stage directions being read, which, you know, and those are tough enough as they are with the basic ones, but for it to, you know, all the cooking is all very action oriented, and I would say, you know, in a fully realized production, I would want to see that very beautifully choreographed. I think it could be really magical as well. I think those would be those moments where we could see like, oh, wait a minute, what is happening exactly? There's a little something a little bit you know, shifting, and off the fact that they find this there, you know, that oh, that was another thing that I learned, was this dish that Amanda so wonderfully writes out the recipe for within the script. I'm like, I think I need to make that. I got to try that out. But yeah, that would be, I see that as a very movement based. I see a lot of movement in this, actually, especially with the Nara tree and, you know, going in and out of it, the magic of that, you know, set designer's dream, if you ask me. Can you make me a tree that's really big that we can open up and have people step into? So those are, you know, kind of the initial thoughts I had about when it's a finally realized, fully realized show.
That's really cool. What were you gonna say, Amanda?
I was gonna add, you know, on the food, because I think it's something that even if we were all together in a room doing a staged reading, it would be so hard to pull off, because like the sound of mashing kamote with like a metal spoon against the glass bowl is like a very specific sound. So it's a bit ritualistic, you know, a bit like shamanic almost. Just it can put you into like a really heady space. And I would also want to have the smell of onion and garlic and ginger, which would hopefully drive everyone into a frenzy, and we would all go out and eat afterwards. You know, so yeah, it was just something that like, it's you know, it's in the script, and yeah, when it's fully realized, everyone will join us afterwards, you know?
I love the smell-orama aspect of it too.
Right.
Smellorama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of, it just sounds like you're talking about like ASMR, like a really extreme ASMR, like with the grinding of the camote. Like,
Mhm.
we're all just like listening to it, and we kind of go into a trance.
Totally. And then you smell all these,
And you're like, oh my
all the
gosh, yeah.
senses.
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm starving. Yeah. That's really cool. I did have a question, and then I think we'll wrap up soon. Unless there's anything else that anybody wanted to bring to the table. I just had a question, Amanda. I really love to hear what people's sort of like dreams for their thing are, or like what it is that their goals are in life. And part of that's because I'm always like in the back of my mind going like, we'll make that happen. You know what I mean? Like, you're always like, well, there will be, this will happen. So I'm just curious, like, since this is like your baby, and it's a relatively young baby, but it's a full-bodied baby, and I just sort of like wonder, what are your sort of like dreams and hopes for it? Like, how far would you like to see it go? Like, into sort of like a blue skying it, like what would happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I I just love already that this has done so much for this group of women here. The fact that it was healing and that it was connective for us already is, I think that's what I hope for with all of my plays, that they are some kind of medicine for the people who are in them and for the people who see them. And if like 50 years from now, I can have some young Pinais coming up to me and saying like, I was in your play and it changed my life. I think that would mean so much. Yeah.
And also maybe a run on Broadway, let's be real. Like,
Taking it to the reality, Carrie.
theater's coming back. Let's speak it. Let's speak it. Let's bring it. The ancestors are here. They want in. They're
Yes,
like
they
all
do.
about it. Yeah. Were you gonna say
Time. It's time. It's
Yeah.
time.
It's time.
Our stories do not get told enough.
Yep.
They don't. They just don't. And even in Asian American theaters in this country, our stories get left out big time.
And it's crazy because it's like, just sort of like, you think producers probably think like, well, who am I going to sell these for? Because then, of course, they're like, this is like a genre. It's like an Asian play or whatever. And it's like, well, first of all, the Asian community will turn out. And we spend the money on the things. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just...
And who can't, but the other thing too is like, who can't relate to siblings, and who can't relate to mother-daughter relationships, and who can't relate to grandmothers and ancestors. I mean, anybody can, and that's, I think, the frustration about it all. It's like, it's just sad. Like,
well,
and
here's the thing is
change. It just needs, and I'm so thankful for, Amanda, who's like, I didn't know before. I was like, fuck yeah, Pinay playwright. It's just, and that's the thing. Where do the stories come from? It has to come from a writer. So, if you're out there, if you're listening, I don't know if there's anybody, I can't tell because I can't tell who's on the YouTube, but it just, whoever, it just, one of the things I always say, like if I do a panel, I'm like, if you're not seeing the story, write it, tell it, whatever you need to do. Because, people.
Yeah, this is a vibe and it's happening. So like, come on,
Get on board.
Fran, what were you going to say, Fran?
Well, two things. One, Filipino plays always oversell, like they sell out producers. So if you want to make money, producers, put on a Filipino play, because there's not been one that hasn't sold out. When we did Dog Eaters at Kirk Douglas, one of my favorite emails that I ever got was from one of the production folks who was scouring Craigslist to see scalping. and Dog Eaters was being scalped for like $250 tickets. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, and put
This
it
is-
in the put it in a good slot, in the good
Yes.
theater with the
Yeah.
most seats. Like
Yes,
you know
exactly,
what I mean?
exactly, with a lot of seats, because they will fill it. They will absolutely fill it. And the other thing is to say that, you know, this is not a subculture, right? Like, this is mainstream. And beyond that, we have all, everybody here, and I'm sure many of the folks who are on YouTube have grown up watching things that were white centric, and we still related to it. I mean, Molly Ringwald was huge in my life, right? I had no problems relating to people who were not Filipino and who were very white. I got it. I got the human experience. So guess what? You're all going to get the human experience, even if the faces are brown. That's what you need to start getting used to, everybody.
Yes.
That's it.
And it's not like a comparison, but it's like, you think about cartoons or animated things, it's like we can all relate to that. It's a cartoon, it's a drawing.
Yeah.
It was like drawn on a you know what I mean? It's like,
Totally. Yeah. We got Pepe Le Pew. We got it.
I
We
had a
understood
total
him, and he
crush
was a
on
baby
Handy
Smurf.
Smurf. Okay, it's true.
There was a Handy Smurf. I don't remember Handy Smurf.
He was so handy. I
Didn't
don't
he carry-
know.
he carried a hammer.
Yeah. But anyway,
Yes.
you, all of you are just like gorgeous, and you know, just to each one of you, just keep going. Like, just, we got to keep going. So,
Oh God. Well,
you know.
you too, Carrie Lee, because you
Yeah,
are an
yeah.
incredible artist in your own right. I've known you a long
Oh,
time, and I've
thanks.
watched you evolve
Oh, thank
yourself
you.
and recreate yourself, and it's been it's just been lovely to watch you as well.
Oh, thank you. We've come a long way since Lady Buns.
Yes,
Yes.
Carrie Lee and I did a show in New York together where we
Yes.
played Martha
Wow,
Graham
really?
dancers and had our hair in buns.
They have
and-
like these really intense buns, and we just had hair pieces and buns for days, and yeah.
Yeah.
it
I
was
met
beautiful.
Carrie
What?
Lee at an audition.
Yeah.
We sat like after the audition in the park in a parking structure
Yeah.
and just
For like
chatted
a
it up.
long time, we were like, "You're cool."
For like an hour. We're like, wait, and then we like became friends, and I was like, damn,
Yeah.
you know all these people that I know. It was like just crazy.
Yeah, it's a good community to be a part of. Let's be real.
It is.
So yeah, keep going and keep lifting each other up. And congratulations on your play, Amanda. This is great. Yay!
Yes, Amanda, congrats.
Crazy.
Nice.